Hey, this is Jonathan Gilliam. I'm about to start the show. It's Monday. And don't forget, I'm doing the show a little later in the day now and releasing it towards the end of the day for the next day. So that in case you're wondering where the show was this morning, that's what I'm doing. Now, here's your tasking for the day for Monday. I want you to get into an argument. Now, let me explain what I mean by that. I want you, when it comes to what's happening right now, first of all, I want you to research and figure it out. Don't just take my word for it. Look at what's happening. Go look up communism. Watch some documentaries on communism and what it was like in Russia and Poland and down in Venezuela now. Find out the reality of how communism seeps in. Listen to Yuri Bezmenov on YouTube. And then, so once you have that knowledge, I want you to point out some things in your argument, right, on a piece of paper. Could be a note card, whatever. And then also how the left thinks and how communism works to subvert people and what the tactics that they use and what they normally say. So what I want you to do is have a prepared argument with somebody. There's plenty of people out there that are going to be willing to argue with you about whether or not communism is actually happening in this country. Now's your chance. Now is the time when you should be, I would say debate, but they're going to turn it into an argument. Your goal out of this entire tasking is to not get angry and to understand what you are saying. Don't just go there and say, I feel this or he said this. I want you to gain the knowledge. I want you to understand what's happening in history. And then I want you to find somebody who's constantly out there on your social media, and I want you to engage. And let's start the show. This is Jonathan Gilliam back on the Experts Podcast. Happy Monday. The truth has arrived as always. And we're now another week closer to whatever this is going to be. I'm not sure what it's going to be, an election in November. Hawaii's already doing their mail-in voting. It is so discombobulated right now that anybody that thinks that there's no way that any type of corruption will overtake this election, I mean, you're just an idiot. I mean, I hate using those words. I hate calling anybody an idiot, but it's absolutely true. You know, the problem and why I started out the show with your tasking today to try to get you to understand how to research before you debate is because I keep having debates, long-standing debates with a lot of people. My good buddy Rick Unger, I don't know if he listens to this show, but I like our debates. We go back and forth because Rick's very critical of me putting out facts. He taught me this lesson when we were live on radio once, and I really understood it. At that point in time, I'm not going to go in the whole story, but let's just say that I was going down a road in my debate with him on the radio that I still know to be true. I just didn't have the facts to back up that argument. And he countered me and was just crushing me to the point where I had to take a commercial break and got mad at him. I was like, dude, I'm new at this. You got to be easy on me. And he was like, no, I'm not going to be easy on you. You got to, you don't show up and argue without the facts. And man, it was a shot to the ego, but he taught me a tremendous amount. Now, when I debate him, especially about communism, it's comforting to me to know that I can counter his argument. Because Rick, like a lot of people, Rick, is a very rich guy. He was a CEO of, I believe it was Marvel Comics for a while. He, was a judge in Beverly Hills. I mean, he's an attorney. And he's Jewish from New York. I mean, you couldn't get any more of an ideal liberal than Rick Unger. So when I have debates with him and he recognizes some of the things that I'm saying as fact, it's very comforting to me, not because I'm proving him wrong, but because I'm proving Rick Unger that I actually do know what I'm talking about. And the thing about Rick, though, the reason I actually started thinking about this before I did this show is that Rick is very liberal and he's very much a Democrat. And I have a problem with that because Rick is not a communist. He's, as far as money goes, economically, he's a globalist. He definitely doesn't want any borders when it comes to the ability to spend in other places. That's for sure. But he's also a very bright individual, and he cares tremendously about this nation. And so I've learned from Rick what used to exist as far as Democrats and Republicans. You know, they were two different groups that were looking towards what was better for this country. Although I do believe that this long-standing communist movement has been in the Democrat Party for a long time, and I actually believe that it's been supported through inaction by a lot of people in the Republican Party as well. And that's typical if you look at history. You know, people don't just take over one political party; they have operatives in the other political parties as well. So that's nothing new. I believe that's the facts here. But when I am going back and forth with Rick, one of the things that keeps going through my brain is that this division that has been created throughout the years of the left and the right. And I don't believe in that scale of politics, that political scale of, you believe this, you're on the left, you believe this on the right. I mean, they say that Hitler, people that believe in that scale say that Hitler was a right winger. And Hitler was not a right winger. He was a socialist. He's as far left, according to their scale, as you can go. But I believe it's a different scale. And I've tweeted about this and talked about it before on this show. I believe that the scale has nothing to do with left or right. It has to do with conservative. And when I say conservative, I don't mean Republican. I mean conservative. Does that light bulb work? Well, let's stop and assess the situation based on facts, looking at the light that it's not on. Is the switch on? Yes. Is the light bulb's on? Did we touch the light bulb to see if maybe it's not screwed in completely? Yes, we did that. Let's unhook it. Let's see if it shakes and you can hear it on the inside, or if it's dark where it looks like it's burnt out. Yes, it is. Okay, we replace it. Or no, it's not. Let's put it back in and see if it's got a short in there, and you put it back in, you kind of move it around, the light comes on. Okay, now you know that the problem is somewhere else, and you work your way through until you fix the problem. Maybe it's just you need to change the light bulb. In that case, what kind of light bulb? Do we get one that lasts for 10 years and you pay $90 for it? Or do you get one that lasts 3 years and you pay $3 for it? Personally, I'd probably get the 3-year one. That's what I would probably do. But people would look at it differently. Emotionally, they say, well, the one that lasts 10 years is better for the environment. Well, I need to see research on that. Okay. Give me some research that shows me how that's better for the environment. And then I still will probably buy the $3 one because I'm not going to spend $90 on a light bulb. Sorry. And I'd like to see how much difference it actually makes on the world. I kind of digress there a little bit, but the point is that's conservative, right? Slow, non-emotional, looking at it and making sure that it's really broken. And if it is, how do we fix it? But how do we fix it in a way that's better for everybody? And not just better for everybody, but is economical, is well thought out, that we're not spending $90 on a light bulb that really doesn't affect the rest of the world. It's just a sales technique. This is the way, this conservative thought process is what I look at as conservative. Now, you can't place that on a right or left scale. I don't care what politicians say. I have a degree in political science. I don't believe half the stuff that I learned, such as that the Constitution is a living, breathing document. But it's not a scale as far as, well, they kind of believe that light bulb is messed up, or they believe that you should change the light bulb based on what's best for everyone and then give out light bulbs to everybody. Okay, maybe that's a liberal way of looking at it, but I don't see that on a right and left. What I see that on is effective and not effective, or effective for a large group of people, but not effective for everyone. And it shows as we go through the headlines, for instance, and we look at what's happening in Chicago right now. Look at what's happening in Chicago, where they're having the same riots they had in New York, the same riots they've been having over and over every night in Portland, in Kansas, in Wisconsin. These things are happening over and over again, and it's pointless. They don't solve anything. It's pure crime, and in a lot of ways, it's chaos that is being allowed to happen. And that is one of these debates that I'm having with people that are on the left, is that they just don't realize the totality of the circumstances. I talk about that a lot on this show. The totality of what's happening. It's far greater than a few people on the that are on their political left. It's far greater than liberal versus conservative, Democrat versus Republican. It is a communist movement to overthrow our way of life. You can look at history and you can look at the way things progress throughout history in all these communist places that became communist. It is repeated over and over and over. And the same thing is here. But what is remarkable about this is that what is being repeated, as far as the way that people see or ignore what's happening, that is also repeated. So it's not just the tactics that the communists use, and you can call it whatever you want. That's the other debate that's happening. It's not globalism. Some people are saying communism, but it's not really communism. But would young people really agree to communism if they saw what communism is? Well, the reality with communism is we put a lot of different things into that category. Socialism is really communism. The ultimate goal of socialism is really a utopia state, just like communism. Although people who believe in socialism may not feel that people who believe in it may not commit that far to a utopia, but there are people that are making it happen that do see it. But ultimately, regardless, whether or not you believe in the Marxist dream of a utopia, the reality is the people at the top, no matter what you call it, socialism, communism, globalism, social, what do they call it? Progressive Democrats, whatever you want to call it. Okay. The ultimate goal is for those in power to become all powerful. That is the goal. And historically, there is no way around getting around that argument. That's the case. That's what it is. And when we look at, for instance, what's happening in Chicago, okay, one of the things that they do, that when I say they, the communists, and historically, is that they allow chaos to reign. Because just like telling you believe this, you must be on the left, or you believe that, you must be on the right, they're causing division anywhere that they can. The more division, the easier it is to control. People who support Black Lives Matter may not even have an opinion about gay rights, or people who support gay rights may not even care at all in the world about the anti-gun movement. Okay, or not gun rights, but gun regulation, whatever you want to call it. But they will be told that they're all left. You're all Democrats, and so now they're separated in their own individual special interest or causes, but they are a part of the left. Their political left. Remember, that's their definition, not mine. Okay, so they will be pushed to the left. And by pushing to one side, they are, in essence, cutting the country in half. Now, the degrees at which these people will move to one side or the other, because the same thing happens with the Republicans. Oh, you're pro-life? You are definitely a conservative, and you definitely have to be on the right. And the Republicans, for sure, will vote pro-life, and the Democrats will vote pro-choice. But I can guarantee you there's people that are truly Democrat, who've always voted Democrat, that do not support killing babies. Guarantee you that. Know them, but they'll still vote Democrat. There's other people who have nothing in common with the Democrat Party, with the exception that they believe in pro-choice, right, for abortion. So therefore, they will only vote for the Democrat Party. They'll go right down the ticket, Democrat, 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 Democrat. Even though nothing else matters except for that. This is how the division occurs. This is what's happening. And there's no denying it. Okay, so people will say, well, okay, so that happens and there is division, but that's just politics. Well, I would say that would be just politics if it wasn't in the context of the totality of the circumstances. When you look at all the things that are happening, it goes far beyond just votes and a political party. What is occurring, and I can't say this enough, I don't know how many of these shows I have to have or how many times I have to talk about this, but every day we look at it, it's more and more, the chaos is being allowed. And in certain cases, such as in Portland, it's not just being allowed, but you have a mayor who is going out there and supporting it. Chicago, the mayor in Chicago doesn't want federal help, rails against President Trump. At the same time, the city is crumbling. Now, yesterday I was walking, and I guess a box of, I do go walk a long ways, okay? That's a whole nother story. We'll talk about fitness sometimes, but I've discovered walking. Before, I was always running. Now, brisk pace of walking for a long, long period of time, it actually has helped a lot of my joints recover. Just saying, that's a side note. But I was going for a long walk, walking through a neighborhood, and there was a box that had apparently, I'm assuming, fell out of somebody's vehicle that was probably moving. But it looked like it was their bathroom kit, right? So it was a big box full of prescription pills. I call the police because I'm a responsible person. And waited for 30 minutes for the police to get there. And so they finally get there, and the guy's picking the stuff up. He's taking my name and stuff. And I tell him I'm, former FBI. And I said, I really feel for you guys now. I left in 2013. I saw what was coming. I got out. This guy, I don't know if he's just saying it to appease whatever, but he was like, well, I think this is just a phase that the country's going through. Well, what? I didn't say anything back to him. If he thinks this is a phase that's going through and that people are going to start loving cops again, he's wrong about that. And he needs to go back and look at 20 years ago, 30 years ago, the things that were happening in Chicago alone. I mean, of course, I don't live in Chicago. I live in New York. But the things that have been occurring in politics and in law enforcement and in activism have been occurring since the 60s. And it's gotten to a fever pitch now. It's gotten to a fever pitch to the point where it is so highly coordinated. And as I talked about several shows ago, where I was in a forum with three men that are in government in Italy, part of parliament in Italy, and they were saying the exact same thing that was going on there that's happening here. I talked to other people that are in business in Germany. I talked to people that are in Australia. I talked to people who are in South Africa. It's the same thing over and over. The same activists, the same big money donors, the same narrative, the same language that they're using in every single place, and the same split, left and right. And the same within that split, the same groups that are divided up, the activists or special interest groups, and the other people that just want to live and work for a living. And the silent majority, and all of these places, and the failure of the silent sleeping giant in all these nations to actually stand together and do something about it. So this is a reoccurring thing. You can call it whatever you want. You can call it communism, socialism. You can deny that it is an ism. Even when I brought up to Rick, when we were going back and forth on Twitter about the fact that it's no different than monarchy, fascist, socialist, communist, whatever, that these people ultimately want absolute power for those governing bodies. And he said, when in history have the people not been ran by some governing type of body? And, here's the facts. He's right about that. But the difference between now and certain times through history, very few times in history, the people always want a governing body because they don't want to be in a position of governing, right? It's like, do you work in a certain place? Do you want to be in management? Most people say, nah, I don't want to be in management. I just want a job to go to, right? Well, most people don't want to be in government. They want to have their life. They want to do their thing. If they want their bass boat or their beer, or if they want their fancy clothes and their Chanel, they want to be able to buy that. They want that little puppy, they're going to go buy that puppy, right? They want to have wine versus tequila, they're going to have it. They want to have a party on Saturday night and somebody else wants to take their kids ice skating on Thursday night. They want to be able to do that. Where you have the problem, and see, the governing body is supposed to be made up in a free nation where they are governing and making sure that, as I talked about at the beginning of the show, those light bulbs are changed and forward thinking it, making sure that we're monitoring those lights, making sure that the light bulbs, aren't showing signs of wearing out, and having spare light bulbs ready to go when those light bulbs burn out. Not making it into a political issue, making it into a light issue. Do we have light? Is it sustained? Where the problem is where government starts to dictate how you will live. You will buy the $90 light. You will put it in this way at this time every year, whether you need a $90 light or not. You will have one and you will put it in there. And you're going to get taxed so that everybody else can have those lights as well. See, that's the way government works. Well, we were wanting to go, skating on Thursday. Well, Thursday's not when you're allowed to go skating. In fact, you can only go skating 3 times a year. And it's only in these days between these hours. Well, isn't everybody going to be skating on those days? That's when you go. You have no choice in the matter. You see, that's the difference. Well, we were wanting to have a party. What is Cuomo saying now? What are they saying in L.A., for instance? No, you're not going to have a party. If you have a party and you get caught, we're going to turn off your electricity and your light, your water. We're going to turn off your water and your electricity. That's the ramifications for having a party in L.A. right now. You see, that's where the government is getting in the way of you living. And there is the big difference. So when I answer Rick, and I'm telling you all right now, I'm helping you understand so you can talk to people about this. When we talk about the ruling class or the ruling party, right? Those are probably always going to be there, always have. But the difference is when those in power or in a position of government to rule, when they start to dictate how you live in this nation anyway, that is where the checks and balances must be looked at and reset, as Thomas Jefferson talked about. Because if we do not, that is where we'll be. And then we will fall back into that cycle where we are oppressed, where eventually the people rise up. Once they've been brutalized for could be hundreds of years. In certain cases throughout history, it's been 1,000 years before the people rose up. Now, I for one, I'm not going to be here for another 40 years, probably, unless I somehow live to be 100. But, well, I guess that'd be 50 years. But most people will not. Will reach the ripe old age of 70, maybe. But your lineage will be here, or other people will be here. Do you want to leave a country for them, or do you want to live, as of November, do you want to live in a socialist/communist country? And here's the other thing. That tree of liberty is fragile. It may be a big oak, and you may say the tree of liberty, stands tall and strong, and it's got all the veterans to support it. But let me tell you, once the chopping starts, once it gets to a certain, I don't even look at it as chopping. You can take, they have these little saws that are, it's basically a cord, and you can go back and forth with that cord. This is the way they amputate legs. They don't sit there with buzz saws a lot of times. They'll use a cord and they go back and forth, and they go back and forth, and the friction actually cuts through bone. It'll cut through a tree as well. But whether you're using one of those or using chainsaws or whatever, once you get to a point where the tree cannot sustain its weight, it will start to tip. And as it goes, it is going to go very quickly, and it's going to fall and hit the ground really fast. Ask them in Poland. Ask them in Venezuela. It happens immediately. And that's where we're teetering on right now. We're at the point where they've been sawing back and forth since the 60s. Really, it goes way back even to the 20s and the 40s. But more or less since the 60s, the activists have been sawing, and they've been getting more powerful, and they've been getting into politics, and they've been getting rich when it came to the Silicon Valley and the .com bubble. So they're sawing away, and they're getting faster and faster. And we're at that point right now, if we don't pull it back and somehow mend that wound and seal up that area where they've been sawing, the tree of liberty will fall. And when it falls, it will be so fast, there will be nothing you can do about it. Let's take a break, and then I'm going to come back, and I'm going to tell you, I'm not going to go full detail on this, but a lot of people have been constantly asking me, okay, you do these shows every day, you put up these memes, what are we supposed to do? Well, let's take a break. We'll be right back, and I'll tell you exactly what you should do. I know I talk a lot about my books, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival. It's 2 workbooks, the threat assessment and the defense assessment workbooks, and my children's book, The Adventures of Team Little Bigs, a parent's book for children. But do you understand what those really are? Okay, those are 4 books that you can utilize to fully predict and plan for and teach awareness and safety and attack survival. That's what those are actually for. Now, yesterday was National Book Lovers Day, but today is the day that if you didn't buy it yesterday or before, you should start with Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival. This, as a parent or as somebody who's, I'd say, 10 years and above, will guide you to a point of understanding of how attackers think and how attackers look at you, how they target you. Once you gain that knowledge, the second part of the book shows you how you can, from the attacker's point of view and the information that you realize, you can flip that switch and go to the defender mindset, the attacker-defender technique. Now, that's the way the book is split up, but it's also the way that the workbooks are split up. The threat assessment workbook, workbook number 1, takes the knowledge that you gained in Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and it gives you a platform to divide your life into sectors and target each sector from the attacker's point of view. Once you've done that, you can take that information and use it to fill out the defense assessment workbook for the defenses to counter the attacks that you came up with, to counter the vulnerabilities that you would use to attack yourself, to counter all the different ways that an attacker, the avenue approach that they would use to get to you. Now, you do all that, and let's say you have children, or you have nieces and nephews or grandchildren. You get the Adventures of Team Little Bigs, a parent's book for children. You give that to your children. It's got pictures in it with all the safety and awareness built into the pictures, no words. Then you go to teamlittlebigs.com, you get the lesson plans, and you teach them safety, awareness, and communications at the youngest age possible. That is how you secure your homeland. And let's get back to the show. All right, so go get those books. I think you'll like them. No, I don't think you'll like them. I think they'll change your life. Absolutely, they'll change your life. And when you combine the workbooks with it, what you start to see, for people who've never seen this before, is how an attacker looks at you. You'll realize it's not rocket science. You know, these people are not doctors of attack. They are people who've learned to understand the behavior of whatever target they're after, and they basically pinpoint your vulnerabilities and they exploit them. It's really that simple. And when you look at yourself after you read the book, you'll start to see that. And you can then apply it to different ways. You know, you can look at how communists look at this country and how they have systematically went after, and following historical pattern of subversion, how they systematically gone after religion and the education sector and indoctrinated the young people, and then used television and social media to indoctrinate the rest of us and get us focused and split on whatever our special interest is. These are tactics that have occurred. And so people keep asking, how do we counter this? How do we counter this? Well, let's continue. First of all, let's look at other things in the news so you can understand where these signs that this stuff is happening. You know, one of the things that I looked at is that, like, for instance, black male leaders warn Biden will lose election if he doesn't name black female running mate. Okay, first of all, we got away from labeling people by the color of their skin. That was the big fight in the 60s, right? Stop, you know, with having black or white only bathrooms, or, you know, water fountains, or you can't eat in this restaurant if you're black, whatever it was. You know, we got away from that. Thank the Lord. Thank the Constitution and the Founding Fathers for the way they wrote that Constitution and the Bill of Rights. And we got away from it. But now, you know, I've been told you're a racist if you don't accept or recognize someone's color. Strange as that may be. But this right here is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. You know, there is no decision here. Like, the motivation of the people that are pushing this forward is power. Okay. There are black liberation theologists, Catholic liberation, just a liberation theology in general that speaks to dividing and breaking the country up. It's no different than the KKK. You can look at that as white liberation, basically. It's very, very similar. All these different groups believe in, they want power based on whatever it may be, black, white, their belief in communism, whatever. And any black male leader that will warn Biden that he must choose a black female running mate is simply pushing that agenda for power. That's it. And that power is coming from people who are divisive, because they simply themselves are recognizing color over experience and gender over experience and over effectiveness of the ability to do that job. If black male leaders were warning Biden, you better pick somebody who is capable of running the country so that nothing happens, defending against enemies so that nobody tries to take over. If you die, in the likelihood that you will die, then if you don't do that, we're not going to vote for you. Now, that I'd be saying, okay, that is not a communist. That is not somebody, even though they would be calling themselves black leaders, their focus is not to break up the country. And I would challenge people who do not think in the way of black liberation that you insist that people stop calling you black. Same thing with white. I would insist that if I go on TV and somebody says black or white, I'm going to say, are you calling me white? And then I would say, then you're a racist, because your focus is my color of my skin, not the content of who my character or my experience level or my ability to analyze this. You're calling me a white man. And listen, to be honest with you, it doesn't mean anything to me. I look at the color of somebody's skin the same as I look at the color of their eyes or the color of their hair. Doesn't make any difference to me. When I was in law enforcement, it's a way to describe somebody who's done something wrong. White male running down the street with a red polka dot shirt on. He's got a red nose and big shoes, dressed like a clown. Yeah, okay, that's a description, right? Black guy with a hoodie just stepped out of the 7-Eleven where 3 people were shot. It's a description. But if you say black guy with a gray hoodie, that's different. It could be 5 kids in there with white and I don't know, green hoodies, because their football team is white and green. Make sure that you describe them properly. It's just a description. But the whole point in this is, it's a sign. This is a sign. This headline is a sign that things in the nation are moving to the left so far that they are almost uncontrollable. And this is, again, a leftist tactic. Why, out of all the way that we've come since the 60s, why would we have gone to a point where we are pointing out the color of people's skin again by those on the left, unless they were trying to use it for their advantage, right? That's the tactic. So you look at these things. This is how you can identify where these people are working, where they are in power. Again, the Chicago issue where the looting occurred yesterday triggered over 100 arrests, 13 officers hurt. And the mayor warns criminals, we are coming for you. Really? You denied federal agents coming in there and helping and assisting. You have set up in and around Chicago. I don't know if you know this or not, folks, but if you live in and around Chicago and somebody robs you, if the value of whatever they robbed you for doesn't, and they didn't use a weapon, and it doesn't go above $10,000 and they don't have 8 prior convictions, they're not going to get charged. They're going to get released and they're not going to have a trial. So that's because these people are, these leftists, these communists are in charge. Remember, I'm looping everybody into communist. They may call themselves one way or the other, but the ultimate reality is if these people continue to get in charge, tyranny will rule. Maybe we should just call them tyrannists. Okay. I don't know. That's a word. I'll work on that. So when I look at Chicago's mayor and the nonsense that spews from her mouth and her actions, I see communism. Let's look at some other headlines here. Here's a good one. Police chief decries cowardly acts after dueling rallies turn violent in Fort Collins, right? Great video footage, by the way. I love seeing Antifa get their asses handed to them by patriots. And they're trying to spin it and say that one of the guys was trying to stab somebody with a flag. But what I'm seeing is this guy's using the flag like a pugil stick to push people off, and especially one guy, and he nails him with it, but there's no stabbing. I don't see stabbing there. It's a blunt object. He's not stabbing. Of course, you know, the way they're going to do it, they're going to have a reporter. It looks like he's from MSNBC. Oh, he's from CBS with the glasses and everything, and it's ridiculous. But anyway, the police chief decries cowardly acts after dueling rallies. So where has this police chief been? And does he not realize that, I mean, I'm not looking, it wasn't huge rallies. We're talking about, 30 people here that got in a fight, maybe 20. And they're standing up. The people that are there that have the American flag, they are tired, sick and tired of Antifa showing up, covered up, looking like they're going to blow the place up and hurting people, hitting them with chains, rocks, urine and feces, lasers to burn their eyes out. The cops aren't doing anything about it. So I'd like to ask that police chief, who are you decrying as cowardly acts? It's certainly not the patriots that are out there. And by the way, I'm seeing that stick again. It is not a blunt object that you can stab anybody with, a sharp object. It is a blunt stick. That stick, and he's using it to hold people down. Oh, I got to hear what this guy says.
Most people at the rally were peaceful, but both sides had aggressors.
It's clear that people are showing up there looking to get in a fight with each other.
So far,
that was the chief talking. You know how these news reports are always, they interview the people that they should be interviewing. They only put like 5-second sound bites in them. And meanwhile, the reporter repeats everything that they said. I've never understood that at all.
Police have cited one person and arrested 3 others. Chief Sabota says investigators will pursue anyone else who committed crimes, no matter who or what they claim to represent.
If there are people out there claiming to support the police, but go out there and act in a manner that's not consistent with our values, we don't want your support.
Okay, see, this is what I'm talking about. This is just like that cop that showed up and said that he thinks that this whole thing is just a phase. That chief, I got to find out what this chief's name is. Let's see here, and where he was chief of. And it was a pro-police rally, okay? Pro-police rally, and these people show up. These Antifa goons show up. But here's something interesting. I paused for just a second so I could go look at who this guy is. Fort Collins Police Chief Jeff Swoboda, okay? And there happens to be another video right here that was on Twitter. Listen to what this moron has to say.
As a human being, to see that was hard to watch. As a police chief, it was hard to watch.
Now, he's not talking about that fight that just happened that I was talking about. He's talking about what happened in the George Floyd case. But listen to what he says. Listen to what he says.
And so I get it. So I'm out here talking with youngsters as young as 1-2 years old. Wasn't really
He's talking to 1-year-olds. What a genius.
Talking with him, but just talk to a 15-year-old who is saying that, it wants a different world. And I'm like, amen. Let's do it. Let's create that. It's going to be her generation that does it.
Okay, first of all, no, it's not her generation that's going to do it. It's most likely not going to be Generation Z that does anything. This cop he's a police chief. He's in a position to actually stop Antifa, right? But he's not talking about that at all. He's talking about, and which he's going to talk about here in a second. And remember, this was a Blue Lives Matter rally, okay? And this police chief is out there discussing police brutality, not the fact that the left is brutalizing police. Listen to what he says.
But you're right. It's happening way too often. You only have to Google police misconduct, and you probably have too many hits to spend days and weeks and months to do it. So we need to change. We need to do better. It starts with police chiefs who address little issues and police supervisors who do their jobs and the community who holds us accountable. So
how about you run your department to where you train your law enforcement officers on use of force, use of deadly force, on the ability to work together so you have more officers going in, better training, spending less money but more time on training. How about that, for instance? So you have better qualified officers out there. How about hiring people based on their qualifications when they show up, not based on the color of their skin or their gender or sexuality? The stupid, the dumbest reason to hire people based on a skin color or their gender. We need more women on the force. How about you hire more people who are qualified, and if people don't show up, you go out and find qualified people and recruit them. How about that? But no, that's not it. That's not it. He's saying that this little 15-year-old and her generation are going to change things. Meanwhile, the police are going to become nicer and more polite, which, listen, I think law enforcement needs to become more of a part of the community. But according to this guy, it is all on the police shoulders. So then that was June 1st. So then when this other thing happens yesterday or today, whenever it was, I'm not sure exactly if it was yesterday or today, Saturday. Okay, so it was on Saturday. His quote is, you've seen the images, somebody with an American flag poking at someone else who is in a fight with somebody. What kind of cowardly act is that? Okay, this was a melee. All right, these people from Antifa showed up at a police rally wearing all black with their faces covered, instigating a fight. And these people brought the fight to them. And this guy is using the flag to push people away that are trying to fight. I'm watching the video right now. He jammed it into a couple people. It's a blunt object. He never did this guy get on the ground and start wailing on people with the stick. He is pushing people away from where the fight is happening. And this chief has the nerve to say this. It just goes to show you, again, this is a sign of the reality of what's happened in this country. It's not just about somebody claiming to be a communist. It's also about these people that are communist-minded, that are in power, and that are helping to chop down that tree of liberty. That's what's occurring. And before I talk about what you have to do, or what you should do, and giving you some hints is that this is the end-all be-all. NASA, if you don't realize from this headline how deeply entrenched the Communist Party is in this country, NASA gets woke by changing racist star names at its headquarters. For instance, going forward, the remains of a dying sun-like star and its mushroom of fleeing comets and gases once known as the Eskimo Nebula will now be referred to as NGC 2392. I guess it's also referred to as Fuzzy Parka, but that's not going to change. Additionally, two galaxies formerly named NCG 4567 something else will no longer be paired together and referred to as Siamese Twin Galaxy. You can still call it Butterfly Galaxy. This is the ultimate. This is ultimately how stupid this whole thing has become. If there are Siamese twins out there, and there's very few that complained about this, well, we can truly say that they're Siamese twins that are communist, I guess. And I don't know many Eskimos that are up in arms about what that NASA, and the reason that NASA's saying that Eskimo Nebula is racist is because they say that Eskimo derives from racist undertones or overtones, what they used to call people from a certain area. It's unbelievable. The country and the world has lost their absolute freaking minds. So here's what you do. Okay. This is all I'm going to tell you right now. I've been talking about dialogue. I've been talking about people getting together for the right reasons. I think these rallies, these support the blue rallies and things, a good experiment for you to do is not go get in a fight. You know, if you're there and you see these Antifa people showing up, tell the police, get the police involved, and record that. If the police aren't getting involved, or if the chief is there, say, Chief, why aren't cops over there stopping these people? They're intimidating us. We're here to support you. You see, work the cameras, work those leftists, because that chief is definitely a leftist. So work him. Ask him, why aren't you stopping that? There's going to be a fight. I'm telling you, there's going to be a fight. Those people are instigating a fight. Be very mindful that you're being recorded, and turn it on them, record them, blast it all over social media when they say stuff like, you know, to a small child, F you, because they're wearing a Blue Lives Matter shirt. Those are the things that need to get out there and circulated heavily. Along with that, the dialogue. When you're there at these things, talk to each other, see each other. There's going to be more as far as tactical stuff that you can do, but I will give you this one thing, okay? Go to these rallies, be a part of the conversation. You may think it's stupid. It's not going to do anything. I literally know several people that it's already changed who they're going to vote for. Not because they went there and saw the Patriots do anything really spectacular. They did feel welcome. They felt very graciously invited there. But what they saw was the way Black Lives Matter and these leftists show up, and Antifa show up and act like animals. Okay. And that makes a big impression on people when they see it in person. So invite people to go with you. If you want to go and you know several people that are kind of on the fence or that are liberal, say, listen, come with us. Nobody's going to judge you. You can even tell people I'm liberal, but I support the police, and offer them a ride. Do whatever you can. Get them there. Say, we'll go out to lunch. I'll treat you afterwards. I couldn't think of anything better to spend your money on right now than that. Get them there. Let them see the reality of it. And if there's a counter protest, make sure they see that. Just try not to get involved with it. Let the police handle that. But if you're running these rallies, here is what I suggest to you. Make sure that you have the most, you can query people as they come in there. Are you law enforcement? Are you former military? Put these people in the outer perimeters where it's likely that the leftists are going to show up. Put yourself a barrier there. Don't let them through there. Tell the police that's what you're going to do. We're going to have a barrier here. We're not letting people through here. So if you see these people show up, just know that there's a barrier here. We're not going to allow them past. So if there's going to be a fight, it's probably going to be right there. Tell the cops that. We're not going to start it, but we're not going to let them through. And then just beyond that barrier, let's say you've gone to a bunch of these things before. Get just to the inside of them. The loudest people, the ones that are there that are most energetic, get there so that you can stand behind those people in the barrier, so you can face the stage or whoever's speaking and participate. But if you have to turn around and voice your opinion to those people as a force multiplier, you can. And then put the people who've never been to one of these things before closer to the center, closer to the area where the speeches are happening and where the rally is going on, so that they can see exactly what's happening and be safe. That is the way you protect people, the way you rally people, and the way you get people who've never done that to feel like they want to come back and do it again. If we do this enough over the next month or two, you're going to see some amazing things happen in this country as far as the voting goes. The other thing is, you got to let it be known about this voting. You should be nonstop with the governors and the mayors and the congressmen and the senators that you will not stand for the mail-in voting. I can't think of a more pressing issue besides abortion right now where we should be jumping on this. The voting is huge. This mail-in voting is going to be a disaster, can tell you already. I almost envision us voting again after we vote because it's going to be that bad. And again, remember I made the prediction before that August, I'm still seeing August is deadly. I think August, and maybe I should have said September, but somewhere between August and November, things are going to go crazy. I predict it's going to start this month. Things are going to start this month. It's either going to be oppression where you're not going to be allowed to go places, or it is going to get violent and more violent starting right now, sometime in August, and it's going to increase all the way through November. One of those two things is going to happen. I feel like I rambled a lot today, but we'll call it there nonetheless. We'll have a show tomorrow. What you have to remember, though, is that communism is a lie first envisioned by Satan himself. Now, you can call it whatever you want. Socialism, communism, globalism. You can call it democratic socialism or progressivism, whatever you want to call it, okay? It was first envisioned by Satan. But like the devil, it promises equality, but it never delivers anything but tyranny. That's because the power-hungry people are the ones that are always pushing for communism. Yet, America's free society is grounded in the Constitution. And like God himself, the Constitution provides truth and opportunity for each individual to choose their own potential. Now that's the truth. I'm Jonathan Gilliam. This is The Experts. The truth has arrived. Peace, and we're out of here.